And did you have any comments on the final of our discussions on access ways? This is.
No.
You wanna take this? This is just kind of the.
It's newer than this one?
It's not newer, but it's just kind of the excerpts that were focusing, that were changed between hearings, so.
Can you remind me where the access ways are on the individual section?
Page 32. Sorry. So that precluded the need for an additional amendment. This is, the board hasn't had a chance to discuss. I want to make sure that we read it.
So the related buildings kind of implies it's an association. Is that-
Well, yeah. And I think this conversation is gonna help late, like next year, if we go to talk about setbacks. Some of the setback things we talked about it different from internal roads, but we didn't really have a clear sense of what an internal road meant.
Right. One of the things I have concerns about is that we don't define any of those terms in the zoning. We do in other documents, but I'm not sure that those definitions would apply.
Are you looking at page 32, Bill?
Well,
Because that's what we're doing, is adding a
Well-
definition for internal road.
yeah, but we're not adding it in the section of definitions. Is that,
Well-
will it still work or?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
everybody else second that. The next section that had a lot of changes between hearings is the PUD section. If you're looking at the full set, it starts on page 40 to 43. If you have the excerpt, it's the next pages there. There had been concern at the hearing about not really being clear how it was phased and what you were starting with. So the language that was added, that 7 that's gonna be a 2 when this gets renumbered and fixed after town meeting. The last piece up blue in there where it says and may occur in concert with the subdivision and or site plan application for the development or for the first phase if the development is to be phased. That language is new. On the next page, the whole concept plan section, number 8, is new. And that then makes clear that what you're issuing the PUD permit for is the concept plan, and then it would probably be submitted in conjunction with a subdivision or site plan application for the first phase. And I think that should address the phasing issue and make it all work better.
So when we say that the planning board may issue a conditional use permit, could you go back over again? What exactly does that mean? What rights does that give someone? A conditional use permit?
It lets you, as part of it, provide relief to some of the dimensional requirements for that development. It means when somebody comes in for a site plan or subdivision that's been approved as part of that PUD, you can grant that relief. Like an umbrella, of that kind of
Okay, gotcha. But it doesn't, it's, does the planning board under this have the right to approve a PUD?
Yes.
That's a change,
The,
right?
yeah, the amendments changed that from the,
Okay. So all this says is that they not only, but there's some flexibility allowed in the approval of PUD.
right.
Okay.
The other language that was changed in here between hearings, is just below that where it says conditions area. I didn't think it was really right yet in one place it said that people could, adjacent owners could pool their lands. But the language didn't really work yet, so after, where it starts out on lots, and then, or combinations of lots is new in there. Because later you say they pool their lands, but you didn't ever say combinations of lots, and then toward the end of that paragraph, I added, I crossed out lot and added, changed it to site. It should be understood that adjacent owners may pool their lands and planning to create a site, because you're not requiring them to do a lot more. One more thing. Again, in response to comments of the public hearing, the top of page 43, approval, section 13. I changed the timing in there. Sorry.
Oh, I was just wondering if we should point out tables, like, in the, this or not.
Sure.
Go ahead.
I'll be reading it once more before the meeting, but yeah.
Okay, so in 9 conditions A area, it says may pool their lands in planning to create a lot, a site. Should this be in plan, I guess? In part stuff,
They pool their lands in planning.
in plan, it should be in plan to create.
No, it really is planning. I think when you had that language previously, you were correct.
They're working together.
Yeah,
Either one works.
they're making sure that their pedestrian walkways line up and that their lighting
Oh, so
matches.
using planning is a noun,
Yeah.
not as a verb.
Yeah,
And the owners are planning.
yeah,
No, that they're each creating a plan and so they're planning together.
yeah.
All right, I didn't get that part, that's a lot, but okay.
No, I think you were right the first time you wrote it.
I think it looks like owners are together as a group planning.
Yep.
To pool their land.
Yeah, that's, and to plan the development of those lands together.
Oh, I just didn't understand.
So in the approval section, the new number 13, I changed the timing in there because the state law on vesting had changed. And it looked like it was trying to be consistent with that, so I made it consistent with the new 2 years and 5 years. Any comments from anybody on the board or the public on the changes to PUDs? Move on then to the use table. All right. This had a lot of changes between hearings. A lot of comments on.
And what number is the use table in the big section?
That's
It's
about
It's amendment number 2,
number 2, okay,
right after the
gotcha.
big section. Amendment number 2, part C. So the change that were made in here, Well, amendment number 3 was done away with, so that meant putting single-family dwelling, two-family residential unit back in the VC and two-family dwelling back in the VC and putting multi-family dwellings back in the C1. So you'll see that in the table. That was actually amendment 3 being dropped by the board. The middle of page 2, the last two uses under residential are new: caretaker or manager apartment on lots 1 acre or larger, that's new. And the raising and keeping of livestock, equine or poultry when accessory to single family dwellings on lots 5 acres or larger is new. Did you have a question?
I just was looking at the new section, alpine ski, the training and so forth.
Yeah.
It's now all permitted. I know at one time, I missed the last meeting, so I know there was a vote on that, and I wasn't sure whether that was intended to include LDI or not.
Yeah, that's next on my list here. Yes, alpine ski lift was changed from just alpine ski lift to alpine ski lift tram or other aerial transportation. And at the last meeting, the board voted not to change it from permitted to special exception in any district.
It was at one time to be conditional, I thought.
It's, the board voted to drop that and to leave it as is, but just expand the name. Right now, it's permitted in every district, so that's an unchanged, I would say, it's being left how it was, it's a change since the first hearing, but,
Thoroughly discussed.
yeah, yes.
I think that was unintentionally omitted in the description in the HDR zone. It didn't get added in there. I think this is correct, but it's not in the
I missed that.
HDR zone as a permitted use.
Originally.
No, under the
No,
wording.
Yeah, as you, in this document here, I think it was just over an
You're saying
oversight.
it's in the table, but not in the.
Yeah.
Okay,
So in cases like that, which would take precedence, the table
I'm gonna
or
fix it,
the,
I'm gonna fix it, they
Okay.
should not.
well, in case there were others though, which would take precedence, the description of what's allowable in the zone? or
These
the-
lists are going away, the table's gonna replace those,
Okay.
so there
All
won't be any
So there
chance for
won't be any
conflict.
confusion.
That's why it
Alright.
gets triple checked that,
Right.
that they are that. And that I would go from the table, right? Because the table is what you guys have worked with and looked at. So my job is to make sure that everything you do in the table, that we catch anything else like that I missed in the text. On page 3, right above institutional public, that's a new use. The board had some discussion on use of animals for recreational purposes for up to 8 weeks. For animals to be kept in the town of Ottawa Valley overnight, site plan review will be required. Compliance with state and federal BMPs demonstrated. And that, some earlier language talked about stabling, but it was changed to kept overnight because I think Bill had the comment that they couldn't just not have a self-report on that. And then toward the bottom, daycare, pre-kindergarten was added as a permitted use in the VC, as a special exception in the C1, and permitted in rec. On the next page, toward the end of commercial uses, storage facilities were added as a permitted use in the VC and the SC. although that motor freight terminals was taken out of this, list and facilities for construction equipment, et cetera, and added as a permitted use in the SC. The next page in the middle, the first item on the agriculture, I put that in to address, your concerns, Bill, about agriculture having to be allowed everywhere. This is the terminology in the state law of what has to be allowed everywhere, so it's just a clarification really, and then I added other to the next line. All other agricultural uses, so it will be clear that you're following the state law on that. So those are the changes in the use tables.
Any questions on that now, or?
Yeah, I think it's easier to.
All right, I just have, so you're gonna use the use table and then the definitions on these will go away, you're saying?
So if you look at the beginning of where this handout, that's amendment number 2, part C, you see the top of that page?
Yeah.
So you'll see what it's replacing.
All right, and I just have, and getting back to Bill's question, so we'll be using this table 90% of the time?
The lists are going away.
So,
To 100%.
so 100%. So, the only thing I have two, I guess, clarification questions, I guess, not necessarily. Under recreational, that's where I'm more interested on the caretaker or management apartment on lots 1 acre or larger. I just want to define that a little bit, or at least get it on the minutes, what your intentions are or what you mean by apartments. Because if you go back to the table on apartments, it moves kind of goes back to dwellings, multifamily. I think if we could define that instead of apartments, is go to number 25, which is dwelling unit. It'd be at least clearer in my mind what your intent was.
It's under residential. right?
Yeah, it's
Not
residential.
recreational.
No, I'm looking for the use table
Yeah.
under uses residential.
Right.
And then you go across on the caretaker management apartment on lots 1 acre or larger, you go across to the recreational, and it's accessory by right. I just want to clarify a couple of them, because apartments is
I think
confusing.
I think that's a good suggestion, and I don't think it would be considered substantive in the way that would require another public hearing. I think the board could make that change. It's just it's just editorial. To make things clear.
Did you read the wording, because I was looking around for it.
So what he's looking at is, we added this use under residential, it's in the middle of page 2, caretaker or manager apartment on lots 1 acre or larger. It would work better with the definitions if it said caretaker or manager dwelling unit rather than apartment. I think that would be an improvement.
Right, so the word apartment is being changed, in this description is being changed to.
Dwelling.
With the board's consent, that's good editor.
The only other thing is,
Let me get.
yeah, that's right.
Yep.
It says on lots 1 acre or larger, I think you could probably put in the, on the lot that the primary use is, I think. It's not meant to be a separate subdividable lot, I don't think. Or recreational zone lots that are 1 acre or larger or something like along those lines. It's more confusing on my side on lots 1 acre or larger. I mean, that's fine, but I don't, it should be the principal use.
Well, I don't think the intention is that
Yeah.
the dwelling unit is an acre or larger.
Yeah.
I think it's that the dwelling unit is
The re-
accessory on a,
The primary use should be an acre or larger.
exactly,
All
not
right.
the non-dwelling.
All right,
Right.
that's fine. So you can leave it alone, I just want to get it on the minutes in case somebody had to.
Yeah, it's
back up.
actually to some extent to the inverse, to prevent the subdivision into a lot,
Right,
you know, so that you could build a single-family home on that lot.
right,
So that's the intent, right? That you'd have to have it's allowed, but it'd have to be part of another use,
right, the primary use.
another primary use.
And I think that's, I mean, to me, that's clear because it's listed as accessory.
All right, that's fine, I
Couldn't
just,
stand alone, it's accessory.
yeah, that's fine, the dwelling part was the big thing that I thought was confusing. And then I only have one clarification. You have something?
Yeah, under that definition, one of the things that I think is confusing, and you certainly speak for yourself, it says any other building or uses on the same site with a principal use, incidental and accessory thereto, and then it says necessary for the operation of the principal use. An apartment for an employee is not, for example, is not necessary for the operation of the principal use.
Might be.
You know, I would suggest that it may say complementary or something like that, but I think the fact that it says necessary for the operation, that's a very, very strict, standard to me.
Except,
You can speak to that, Craig.
Well, I would, I think it's getting to a point of being necessary.
I think that that term tends to be used to identify other things that aren't in the list,
Right,
like, the dumpster outside and the screening for that. If it's listed in here, it's clear that it's allowed when it's accessory to a primary use.
right, I'm kind of fine with that, I think it's at least the interpretation. And then if we move on, the only thing I want to clarify on the agricultural animal thing, I think we're talking about kind of sleigh ride type thing. So we can store on the recreational zone animals up to 8 weeks, is that the idea? With approval from this board?
Yeah.
Does it have to be site plan, if it's just?
If they're staying overnight, then you need site plan review.
Right.
Right.
So that you can make sure that the waste is being dealt with.
Right, the BMPs are being,
B and Ps is the real issue.
Right.
And when this was written before, it was the ZBA that essentially had to review the application. Now this reverts back to the planning board?
Yes.
Okay.
So for the stabling of animals for up to 8 weeks is allowed with a site plan review, right?
That's what this,
Yes.
this passes, that would that would be it.
And that's strictly site plan review though, right? You don't need a special permit or anything.
Correct.
All right. And over 8 weeks is not allowed? Right, all right.
Well, it's stabling of animals for recreational purposes.
Right.
It's not outright stabling of animals that are allowed.
If it fits the agricultural definition,
Right,
Right.
but that's, then that's on lots greater than 5
So-
acres. Yeah.
right, it's kind of like if it's more than 8 weeks, it becomes agricultural and
Right.
it needs to meet those requirements.
So if you had a lot bigger than 5 acres, you fall into the state category of agricultural, right?
the separate
And that's an
You
exempt use,
could.
right?
No, it is not, and it would require a special exception and not be allowed in as many zones. If you look at page 5 on the use table, the raising and keeping of animals as an agricultural use is the bar is higher.
So raising and keeping of animals as an agriculture use pursuant to RSA is a special permit.
Correct, and it's not allowed in as many districts, and it does have the 5 acre requirement. So basically, when you're past the 8 weeks,
You need
then
to-
you'd need to follow the,
But it could be granted by this board. Because it's in the.
No, that would be
Special
granted by the
exception.
zoning board.
Zoning board?
Exceptions, yeah.
ZBA.
The first line in the agriculture, the first use listed on agriculture is the only thing that's exempt under state law. The killing of soil and growing and harvesting of crops.
That's the only thing that the state exempts.
Correct.
All right, that's just the definition from, I'm fine with everything, if you change the dwelling thing.
Any other comments on the use table? So amendment number 3 is gone. The previous 4 is now 3, and you'll see 3, 4, 5, and 6 on together on the next page in the handout. Amendment number 3, as it now reads, this wasn't changed between hearings. 4, 5, and 6 are brand new. They weren't presented for comment yet at hearing number 1. The reasoning in bringing these forward now is kind of in conjunction with leaving the residential uses in those districts. This is another way that density could be improved by eliminating these requirements.
You're saying amendment number 3, 4, 5, and 6, they're gonna stay, or are you saying that this amendment number 3 is?
This is your current proposal. Amendment number 3 on here used to be number 4.
Okay, so this all stands as it is.
This 4, 5, and 6 are new. These were separated into separate amendments because the board had some further discussion about these at the last meeting. If at this point the board is good to go, they could be combined. They probably make sense to be combined. I forget if it was your town council now or another one, so I'm dealing with 4, but I think we got confirmation from yours that it's fine to combine and that
Yes,
that wouldn't require another hearing.
that's correct. And they will actually be amendments 4, 5, and 6, but there'll be one question on.
Well,
the
no,
ballot.
they could be one amendment. They could be grouped into one
Yes,
amendment.
That's right.
This could
Into
all
one question.
this could all just be called Amendment 3 and have these 4 parts.
Yeah.
And I think that makes sense because they're all dimensional requirements aimed at higher density in the village center.
Nothing's really contentious to kill the rest of them.
I know, the same number.
Terry, can I say something for the record? From the town management standpoint, increasing the density or taking steps to increase the density in the C1 and the VC zone is beneficial, I think, in the long run to the community. So anything that the board can do to increase that density, those are the zones that we as a town, the master plan has said we want dense development. So I encourage the board to do these amendments. It's good for our tax base.
You said VC and C1. What changes are we making to C1 to increase density?
Amendment 3.
Reducing the front setback from 35 to
setback,
20
yeah,
feet.
Right, okay.
So I do think that these are important in the long term for the tax base of the town. That's not the Board of Selectmen, that's town management.
So this is the first time the board has seen these, because they were added in the last discussion.
So these are results of discussions after last board
Yes.
meeting, or was there additional meetings?
No, it was discussion of Bill Cantlin's comments at the last meeting.
Yeah, I see you put the multifamily dwellings back in C1. That's a change from the original.
Yeah, I went over that. When we talked about the use table.
Yeah.
You're raising an objection, right?
I'm just curious why you put it back in.
I know that I objected to removal of it, and on the basis that you're taking someone's rights, the property away from them. And you're significantly diminishing the value of the land. And I just have real problems with that. That's my that's basically my rationale for putting it back in.
It's in the commercial.
Well,
Well,
you know, but at the point, because you were here at the point in time this was debated, and it was heavily debated then, right? I was not part of those discussions. But my understanding is they finally reached a compromise where it was put in and allowed multifamily dwellings in C1. Otherwise, I'm not sure we'd have a C1. Because that was originally VC land, right?
Yeah, right.
Also think it's supportive to the objective to increase density.
No, well, in fact, my comment is, and I don't think we're gonna do it for this year, but for next year, we should look, if it makes sense to allow single-family homes on basically any size lot, why that doesn't apply to C1 as well is beyond me. I mean, I can't come up with a rationale. If that's the right solution, it's the right solution for all of it. But I don't wanna entertain that now.
yeah, no, we can't add
Yeah.
things now. We can make editorial changes and we can leave them behind or not.
I think that was the direction of the debate and discussion.
Right.
So is the board all set with the wording of each of these?
One of the things I'm struggling with is getting a good copy of what the new one would in its entirety look like. You know, I see a lot of strikeouts and add-ins and, you know, and I'm struggling with reading that. You know, just personally, you know, I'm getting
Yeah.
older and I really struggle
Well,
and I'm not sure.
the ones that are separate amendments, you're not gonna see in the full text until after they're voted.
Yeah, but we ought to make for the planning board, because the problem is we're being asked to put these forward. And I don't care if it's an official copy, but an unofficial copy, just so that I know exactly what's in and what's out. I should think it'd be pretty easy to do. I mean, I wouldn't think it'd be that hard, but.
For amendments 1 and 2, all you need to do is turn off show changes. But amendments 3 through whatever, they're not gonna be in that text until after town meeting. When everything that's passed is put in and it's already numbered to work together. That's actually a lot of work.
Oh, okay.
To fix,
Well.
to adjust the numbering, it's not something that you wanna do twice.
See, here's my question. If I go to page 15 in the long text, in the development regulations, this is under, so this is section 6, I guess, A5,
Not really.
on page 15.
Yeah.
It still says the minimum zoning lot size for a multifamily dwelling shall be 1 acre.
Mhm.
Well, oh, okay, in single family, or it's a half an acre. I thought we were trying to say that you could have any lot size. So, well, no, I'm on page 15, on the
Bill, that's a
DC.
separate amendment that's being done in this, when you look at the
So,
full
what-
text, you're looking at amendments 1 and 2. That's a separate amendment, so you're not gonna see it in that.
Well,
That's why when
is that, here's my problem, I don't know then if that statement's going away. No, under VC, village commercial.
Under VC, amendment number 4
Oh,
says
my
it would be
pages are out of
eliminated in
order.
its entirety.
My pages are out of order.
So we're in DC.
That's what's confusing me. I mean, even the set I've got here now, I've got pages out of order, so I'm struggling with going back and forth to make sure there's no inconsistency.
And I think we just have to trust that the amendments will be implemented after they're voted on. You know, that we-
Well, don't you actually have to put forward a set of the wording for people to vote on?
If you're looking at it, I don't know how else to explain it, Bill. You're looking at the wording.
It's not, let's put it this way, it's not what we've done in the past. In the past, in this town, we've given people, here's what the new wording will look like, so they know what they're voting on. And you're saying, but what you're saying is I should trust the fact that the right deletions will take place.
No, no, I'm not. Amendment number 4 says that sentence would be eliminated. If amendment number 4 passes, that sentence is eliminated in its entirety. That's what amendment 4 says.
Well, then why isn't it struck out?
Because it's a separate amendment.
Well, okay, I hear you, but I'm still confused. I would prefer to have, so that I know what I'm recommending, a set of documents that, okay, here's what the new zoning documents will look like, assuming everything gets approved.
To be honest, your town council would have liked to have seen this broken up into even more amendments.
Yeah. Well, right, okay.
But what that's why you have, the different lens from the town attorneys, and mine is more, if it might be controversial, keep it separate. Lump everything together, that's not likely to be. So the question, the board hasn't made any decision on 4, 5, and 6 yet. It's the first time you need to do that, and you need to decide whether you want 3, 4, 5, and 6 lumped into one amendment.
Each of which.
Okay, is that gonna require a vote from us?
Up or down.
Might be good because they're new.
Mark?
Yeah.
We have to come up with a vote as to whether or not to accept amendments. 3 through 6 or 4? 4, 5, and 6. We're in a public hearing.
Mhm.
Should we close the public hearing, have that vote?
No, you can just, right now, I'm really just looking for the board's consensus on 4, 5, and 6, and whether you think you want these lumped together. After you close the public hearing, you'll vote all of these forward
Yep,
for.
that's
town meeting.
So you don't, okay,
And just like board consensus, I don't,
at this point, you want to do it consensus. All right, let's go around. In favor?
Are we in favor of 4,
In
5,
favor of
6
4, 5,
and
and
lumping
6.
them?
No, we'll go that second.
So this is in favor.
This is
In
favor
favor
of
of
4,
4,
5,
5,
in favor.
I'm still on the fence, and I'd like to talk a little bit about the consequences of reducing the lot size in GC. All right, I'm directionally in favor, but that strikes away, is my understanding, pretty much anything that deals with the minimum size house as well. So when I'm the building inspector, somebody comes to me and says, I just bought an eighth of an acre lot. And I wanna put a manufactured house here that I'm gonna buy from somebody down the road. What criteria does he use for deciding whether that's an acceptable structure or not?
Don't you have
What
minimum
language?
home sizes in the ordinance?
Well, aren't we eliminating it?
No.
You have
Coverage,
covenants, right?
setback.
No, just the coverage and the setback.
So the house would still have to be a certain size?
The lot's still gonna have to accommodate the
Sure.
size that you require.
Don't you have homeowners covenances?
You do in certain areas, but,
Right.
if there's an association, there's a covenant.
That rules.
You're not changing the square footage of the required square footage of the home.
Where's the square footage of the home in the zoning?
It's not,
It is, in
It's
my
not required.
knowledge, it's only in low density.
no,
It's if you read in the section of low density and high density, it does define what the minimum size home is in terms of square footage. But beyond that, it doesn't.
it should. Your
Well,
covenants, your homeowner's
so
covenants.
is a 500 square foot home acceptable on a 1 acre half, on an eighth of an acre lot?
HUD
Right now-
determines
The other
the
requirement.
density.
Right now, it's 900 square foot. The minimum habitable floor
Yeah.
area, grade level, principal buildings, 900 square foot. And that would fit on.
It has to meet the setback and lot coverage requirements.
And you're gonna,
You're saying you've read all of this and you're comfortable.
That's in the LPR. So that only applies in the LPR.
Right, that's.
Right.
what we have to mark up.
Well, no, yeah,
And
but
you
that's
also have
LDR.
VC.
It doesn't apply to
Oh, sorry.
VC. And the question is, in VC, is there any definition? The only thing I can come up with is there's a definition that says it's somewheres all properties have got to be of a New England old style, style.
That's never been enforced.
No, and we're putting the building inspector in a position of having to make a judgment.
He
My
should,
concern is
he should
that-
not make a judgment on the architectural design of a house. You can't do that.
He
That's
doesn't.
unconstitutional.
Well, there is some,
You have a covenant in a neighborhood, that's different. But if you have a neighborhood with no covenants in it, and you want to build a log cabin or a manufactured home, you have that right. And if you take that away, talk about taking away property rights.
What you're doing is reinforcing my point, which is what you're going to open this up for is basically, suppose, I'm gonna give an extreme. I go out and buy a trailer,
Yes.
all right? Now, there is an ordinance against trailers, and I take the wheels off of it. Is that acceptable?
If it meets the criteria of a dwelling.
but it can be, whether it's an acre lot or whether it's an eighth of an acre lot.
I don't
You
think
can-
we want those on an eighth of an acre lot in this town.
Yeah, but Bill, they can put them on an acre lot, is the point. We don't have
Yeah,
anything in
except
the,
that you gotta go buy the acre lot.
well,
Right.
but you still have to have a subdivision. This isn't gonna be done in a vacuum. It isn't gonna be just the building inspector making these decisions. If a person has,
Once the land is subdivided and it's approved, what controls do we have in terms of what gets built?
the same controls that we have today, which
No,
is
I
nothing.
would contend that the difference is.
You have it in your homeowner's
The
covenants.
acre is right away making a statement as to what you're gonna build or not build. You're not gonna put a trailer on a 1 acre lot,
Well, if you're not gonna do it, why are you worried about it?
because they would do it on an eighth of an acre lot.
What, how would they,
Well, that's my concern.
It's a matter of the affordability of the land now.
It's affordability, and do we want to open this up? And that's my concern with just going right to this.
well,
Let me give you another example, because I think I sent these to both of you. which is what's the you realize one of the unintended consequences is existing DC land that has properties on it. So let's take the North Star Inn. They would have enough room to subdivide that and put a couple of building lots out front. Do we want that?
The higher density.
The goal
We
was
want
to
that.
get to higher density, which
Right.
I would have liked to see you go
They still got
minimum
a,
density and require 6 or 8
Yeah.
megawatts. But I think that this is why, we agreed to have these be presented as separate amendments rather than one lump together,
Right.
because you had concerns about one.
Section N is the architectural regulations, and that applies to all.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, but but
It does have-
somebody said no one has ever applied the darn
Well,
thing,
that's
and I
what
agree.
Well,
But it
okay,
doesn't mean
can
you
write
can't
whatever you
have
want. That doesn't mean. But
Right.
just, if you read the architectural regulations, you could not put a trailer in an eight of an acre lot. It wouldn't
Right.
meet architectural standards.
No, I would agree with you, But we're putting the building inspector, whoever that individual is, in the position of having to make that judgment. And
That's
I'm
why you
not
have
thrilled with that.
Well, actually, he wouldn't have to make that judgment because if it's VC, it has to go for the planning board.
No, it doesn't. Not if it's a single-family home site. You're exempted all of those.
So I
From
wonder
having to go
if we
before the planning
should
board.
finish going through the changes, and then you could close
Well-
the public hearing and make your decisions about.
You were asked, am I in favor of that amendment on the way? I don't know yet.
Right, so we should probably put
I'm
that aside,
struggling with
and
what do we got?
so we should probably put that aside and continue
Sure.
the public hearing, and then close the public hearing and have that discussion and decide which one to put forward. So,
Rob, do you wanna give your opinion?
Oh, you got that from? No, I'm fine.
so there was,
I was thinking about it, but
Do you
I,
agree with 4, 5, 6? What should be-
I do.
so, there were a couple more changes that I didn't hand out in the handout because they were just so minor. Parking had been amendment number 5, is now number 7. We added, and the gentleman that suggested it isn't sitting here anymore, but
Right.
we added, that the 1,000-foot walking distance would just be for non-residential, and it would still be 300 for residential. I also took out the conditional use reference. The attorney didn't feel that you needed to call it a conditional use. I worked with some other town attorneys who do feel if there's any flexibility, you need to hang it on special exception or conditional use, or special use permit. Yours does not, so I took that language back out. Lighting was 6, is now 8. Again, in there, I took out the conditional use reference. So it's doing all the same things, but, and your attorney feels that the planning board has that flexibility if the zoning says so, whether or not the zoning uses the words conditional use permit. And then amendment 9, 2 of the rezonings are gone from the map. It's now just the one. Lots across the spectrum here.
Would it serve our purpose to try to define what conditional use means?
We did, and conditional use permit is still in there for the unit development. Did the public have any other comments on anything else about the changes?
Bill?
Can I comment on Bill's concern before you close the public hearing at some point? Can we do that now?
Sure.
Your points are well taken, Bill. And I think that it's really hard to prevent a lot of bad ideas.
Right.
And I think the thing that you have to remember is if someone went in, that someone would be, and created a lot of small lots, they want to sell all the small lots. If they allow a mobile home or a shabby mobile home that meets the building codes to go on one of those lots, they're going to affect the marketability of all the other lots.
Sure.
And marketability is primary in a developer's world of how do I create a vision and a concept that's marketable? And what you're talking about is adding a Bob house on the lot that is going to affect not only the marketability of maybe that lot, but it's going to have a huge impact on the adjacent properties. And so if I was doing it, or any developer I know was doing it, and you do that under a comprehensive plan, you're going to, and as buildings get closer and closer together, they have to share more and more architectural features and color features. So I really see your concern as being of very, very, very little risk.
How about let me, I'm like, I happen to agree with the statement you just made, that they'd be shooting themselves in the foot to do that. And I'm less concerned about that. But we've got individual lots that are in BC that could, where somebody to unload it could make another decision. We've got the 7th green that they want to put back into BC. They've got the property in the front of the North Star. That's bordering on a quasi eyesore already, in all honesty. What's the prevent there in someone to just say, look, I'm subdividing a lot, there's no restrictions, anybody buys it, anything goes.
Well, just your example of the North Star, you got a parking problem, so your parking would probably come into play if you subdivided all those up in the parking lot, basically, it's what in front of that building.
Right.
So if you subdivided that parking lot, that would make that North Star non-conforming because it wouldn't meet the parking requirements, which would not be approved as far as I can see. So you couldn't subdivide that particular example that you're using because all of a sudden it would make it non-conforming, and this board cannot make a lot more non-conforming than it already is. That's paramount on what your decisions
Okay.
are. So you could not change that
Stone
parking lot.
property management, what's to prevent stone property management from that lot where the old stone was,
Right.
from subdividing and creating a building lot?
Nothing, and that's probably a good idea to actually put residential in that property. And that's what you're trying to do is increase the residential component in all the zones, which is paramount today of any developer has to add residential. You have to bring a residential component to all commercial properties. If you don't, you're not going to sell your commercial properties. So I think, and if you're using individual examples, because there's only a few lots out here, I think a couple of them, the North Star Island would never work. I think Stone property might work, and there was nothing wrong with them putting a residential component into that property. There's also wetlands on that particular issue, and I think you've got problems with wetland issues, so I don't think you really could subdivide that lot any further than it already is. So if you're gonna, I don't think you want to get into individual lot cases into this zoning bylaws. But what you can do, what you need to do here is cut down the risk, not eliminate everything. And you are cutting down the risk, and you're adding a residential component to a commercial properties, which is paramount here. You have to get these lot sizes down in order to get the affordability up, in order to get people in. It's a simple concept. Across the country, they're taking malls and turning them into residential components because they don't work as commercial properties any longer. You don't need as much commercial property as you used to have 25 years ago. You need bigger roads for the UPS driver.
Are you looking to put some sort of a lot size, like a quarter acre is the minimum?
I just said that I'm struggling with understanding the ramifications of this change, that's all. I don't want to sit here, have a planning board sitting here 2 years from now saying, what the hell were those boneheads thinking? Because there's a lot of change. This is a big change. And I'm directionally absolutely in favor of the concept of going to smaller lot sizes. That doesn't bother me. What bothers me is the unintended consequences of doing it.
I think the other-
have we really thought those through?
I think the other consequences of putting a minimum lot size into the zoning bylaws, if you're eliminating them, is a lot of these lots have topo issues. And you really, a 5,000 square foot lot or an eighth of an acre lot is not always going to be the same. If you subdivide them on paper, that's one thing. But when you get to look at that lot, you might not be able to build on all those lots. So you can't really subdivide them all into eighth of an acre lots because you got serious topo issues. And I think they all have to be taken in division as a subdivision when you approve a subdivision. That's what you have to look at. You're asking for plans to come in, you're looking at topo maps. I don't think you're thinking that this will happen is you just divide these up and then come in and improve them. You have to look at and any developer that subdivides their own property will know what they can and can't build on it physically. And that comes into play up here much more than if we were in Kansas, you know.
Well, one of the things you have that gets submitted as part of these subdivisions, and under a PUD, you can require any other information that you reasonably require. But I think you're going to find that if someone's going to create a lot of small lots, you're going to have a homeowners association. I mean, certainly with the lots that we own in Moose Run, there's going to be an association associated with that. You require that those documents, as in condominium documents, all get submitted to the planning board, right? I've always submitted them. Nobody's ever looked at them, I don't think, but it's a requirement, and it gets submitted. Those are the requirements that put the vision of the development into words. And it's regulated by a homeowners association, not the planning board, which is probably a good thing from your point of view. But if someone comes in with a PUD to avail themselves of these things, you've got the right to say, well, let's see your controlling documents.
If they come in as a PUD, yes.
Well, right now, I think that's probably how someone would come in, but yeah.
Why wouldn't they just come in with a plan to, I mean, help me here, why wouldn't they just come in with a plan to subdivide?
The big reason is you're gonna need an internal driveway, as you have in a condominium.
Right,
The town doesn't want that driveway,
right,
right? So that's gonna be a private driveway.
right.
Private driveway, you have to have provisions for how it's gonna be maintained in the long run.
Well, no, that would get you to the homeowner association,
Right.
but I'm struggling
Bingo.
with understanding of why you would need to go to the extent of calling it a PUD.
Because the
Because
setbacks,
this basically
the
allows on
setbacks aren't
BC
being
land.
changed,
Yeah, but we're waiving all of that stuff.
but only as part of the PUD.
Has a plan PUD.
The setbacks aren't being proposed to be changed here, only the minimum lot sizes, lot coverage, open space.
Correct.
So if someone wants to come in and reduce setbacks, they've got to do it through a PUD. I think it gives you the control. If it was me, I would voluntarily give you the control to look at the controlling documents that are the backbone of that kind of a development. And I think that that's going to have a vision that's going to prevent the mobile home from coming in there.
Well, it's gonna require some further discussion after. Take the vote.
I'm struggling with, I just don't understand the ramifications for the change we're making, and I don't see how in sitting in this meeting that's gonna, I'm gonna feel any more comfortable. But, that's irrelevant. I mean, you can go on.
I think we should close the public hearing and have that discussion. And decide as a board whether you're gonna go forward with that.
I'm in favor of that.
All right, then you've gone through all the amendments. Are there any more comments from the public?
Well, just in general, I think you want to approve the PUD because it's a live thing. It will move in time, and different boards can approve different things at different times, and that's important. Zoning bylaws are strictly, regulations are a snapshot in time today, and that might change in 5 years. Whereas a planned unit development can change over time, and needs to be in there.
All right, then, if there's no other comments, we'll close the public hearing. And thank you for your comments. Appreciate it. So I guess the first thing to go into the, let's finish this. So the first thing to determine, I guess, is whether or not we're going to go with each one of these new amendments, 4, 5, and 6. And then we can determine whether or not we should make them all one. So you want to go through one at a time? Thanks, Tyler, and just, I don't think we're gonna vote at this moment right here on the one that Bill was discussing. Which one is that?
So like,
You have to.
you do today need to vote
We do
whether
today.
they're gonna go to town meeting or not, yeah.
Right, but I think if we can vote on the others and then discuss that one amendment. Well, you have to.
No, you can drop one, you can
Yeah.
vote to, you can vote to push or accept that one forward.
Yeah, you
if
could
wanted.
combine all with that one too, as well.
I think all you'd wanna combine are the ones on this one sheet, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
That's what I mean.
4, 5, and 6.
No, I think you could combine 3, 4, 5, and 6. They're all dimensional changes toward making a higher density village. You
Okay.
wanted, you could also keep 3 separate, because it's about the C1, and 4, 5, and 6 are about the VC.
just run down the amendments as well.
Right, I think if we approve.
Just just a point of order. Can we just go down 1, 2, 3, 4? It's easier for us to keep track of whether or not, exactly what's being moved forward. So if you just take Amendment 1, talk about it, vote on it, it's easier for us to track. And
Well, I'm gonna have to unseat you. All right, we can start with amendment number 1. And this, we're voting to send this to the.
To
Town-
recommend it to town meeting.
recommend it to town meeting.
We're voting to recommend it.
All right, so I'll move that, showing that amendment number 1 be recommended to
2019 town meeting.
2019 town meeting. Can we get a second? Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, it passes. We'll move on to the second amendment. I'll move that the amendment number 2 be recommended for the 2019 town meeting.
And you wanna offer that with, asking me to proofread it one more time, because Bill caught something that I missed. So you might wanna qualify it with any editorial corrections.
With any editorial corrections. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes. Amendment number 3. I move that we recommend amendment number 3 for the 2019 town meeting with editorial
Correct.
corrections. The editorial corrections.
I second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes. Amendment 4, is this the one that you were concerned about, Bill?
Yes.
All right, so let's I'd like to go on with 5, 6, and 7 if we could, we'll discuss that later. Amendment number 5, I move that we recommend amendment number 5 for the 2019 town meeting with editorial corrections.
I see.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously, okay. Number 6, I move that amendment number 6 be recommended for the 2019 town meeting with editorial corrections. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
You want to do 7, 8, and 9 when you're at it, and then just
Do
circle
7,
back
8,
to
and
4.
9.
Amendment number 7, I move that amendment number 7 be recommended to the town, 2019 town meeting with editorial corrections. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Move on to the next. I move that amendment number 8 be recommended for the 2019 town meeting with editorial corrections.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimously. And I move that amendment number 9 be recommended for the 2019 town meeting with editorial corrections.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Now we have up for discussion amendment number 4. And this has to do with, I don't think that one, the then parking requirements to give.
No, 4 deals with the
Minimum lot size.
minimum lot size in DC land.
Right, number 4 would, okay. And the discussion was around the probability or the possibility that some elimination of the minimum lot size would allow for some less than desirable minimum lot size or minimum size structures. to be built. I think Frank brought up a good point that if there is a subdivision into smaller lots, it has to come before the planning board, and at that point, you could look at contours and so forth and assure that the building, that the lot is buildable. But Bill makes a good point, is that you have no minimum square footage for the building, then you could put a relatively small and not a very big looking building on there. And although I said the architectural standards would prevent a trailer from going in, we do have these mini homes now, which would probably meet the architectural standards.
Well, that's the problem.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I looked at that and said, I'm not sure whether they would or wouldn't.
Well, I don't know.
They, because we've also got an anti-trailer ordinance.
Yeah,
But if you take the wheels off of it, it's a trailer. I don't know.
Well, could we not stipulate these things into,
Well, we haven't. That's the problem.
say with,
I
no
think we
trailers, no
could.
manufactured homes, no mini homes, no trailers without wheels? And that, you know, these-
Except you can't do it now. That's the dilemma. Yes, you could. So either we'd have to vote to approve these things, vote to leave it this way for 1 year and come back a year from now and tighten up those regulations, which we could do. To prevent, But I don't like the idea of putting the building inspector in the position of having to make a judgment as to whether something does or does not meet, a pretty vague architectural standard right now.
What I'm not following is how that relates to the minimum lot size. It's only half an acre now.
Well, it's because people who don't have as high.
Right.
Have quarter acre, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah, it is.
yeah, it's one of the
Which I just-
one of the controls right now is
I
you
just think
gotta
that-
spend a lot of money to get a lot,
But we
and
need-
you're not
we
gonna,
need-
you're gonna.
We need
Right.
affordability, we need a variety of residents in town that we don't have now.
Have you run into this in any other town or situation that you, in your 30 years of doing this?
I don't remember seeing anybody else have a minimum lot size for only residential uses and nothing else. I think that's kind of where the board's conversation came from on this, was why was there only a minimum lot size for residential? That's something that I haven't.
So typically in a commercial or village commercial.
The minimum lot size is the minimum lot size for everything.
Oh, this, no matter what zone it's in. I get the impression what you said before was that the only minimum lot size was residential.
In yours, you don't require a minimum lot size for commercial, so I could make my ice cream stand on an eighth of an acre.
Yes.
But for a home, I need a half an acre.
And that's unusual to do that.
Right. But when communities are trying to promote more density, getting rid of the minimum lot size or having a minimum density, as we've talked about, where you require 6 or 8 units on an acre. is how you would do that.
We've had so many changes in our current call. Do we now allow residential and commercial? And see what.
Multifamily,
Yes.
you allow it now, and that's not proposed to change.
The point was made earlier that if you don't allow residential and commercial, you won't be able to sell your commercial properties.
Right.
So I didn't think that was
Oh,
objectionable.
all that's up for discussion right now is whether or not to have the minimum lot size for residential in BC.
You know, we need density and diversity. We just do. I think this is a good way to get it.
Agree. And the daddy back and forth. Single family residence in BC versus multi-family. It's been determined, marketability that single family should be in BC. Is that correct?
They're allowed in there now, and the decision was to leave that alone for now.
Because we were getting rid of the minimum
If you get rid of the minimum lot size and then allowed only multi-family, then in BC, then does that change the issue? You couldn't put a, that's why you put a multi-family trailer in.
Personally, I think it's a good idea to move to a smaller lot size. I just want to make sure we're doing it correctly, that's all. And it's all of the, you know, you write these regulations, you'll get a bunch, you know, we don't know who's gonna own this land in 4 or 5 years. We, you know, it could be anybody, and you could have somebody who doesn't have bill standards and says, well, I'm just gonna want to subdivide this and do whatever I want on it. If I can sell them, I'll sell them. I don't care what people build on the thing. I don't care if they put a trailer on it. And I'm concerned, I'm just a little bit concerned about that.
Well, what if you had a quarter acre minimum lot size? Do you feel that eliminates the trailer situation, or is it not aggressive?
It would certainly make it better, but
The problem,
but the problem
The
is we
problem-
can't go to a quarter acre without holding another public hearing.
right, I wasn't gonna say that, but the problem is how it is now, when you think, when your goal is to increase density, you have some land with duplexes on them that have 8 acres or more per acre right now. You're not allowing that to happen in the VC. You're requiring more land to be chewed up and taken out of potential commercial use than is necessary. You're requiring the VC to be lower density than the HDR. And I don't think that's the direction that we're trying to go.
Well, I believe we're having this discussion because there is the developable DC land. There is no HDR land that can still be developed, in my knowledge, anywhere in town.
But what I was
So
saying
we're
is
less
that
concerned
your,
about it.
if your goal is to make the village area more dense than the surrounding areas, you're working, this half acre working against you.
Oh, I don't disagree with
You
the
can only
concept.
put 2 duplexes on an acre, whereas if you have some quite attractive developments in the community that have a lot higher density. But you're not allowing that yet in the VC.
If this amendment was not passed this year, say we didn't have this amendment, we still have the PUD situation that kind of leads toward the same target, right?
I would, is there anything in the PUD definition that prevents well, it would be if, I think if we said that single-family homes required a half acre, which is what is currently written in the regulations, even if you did a PUD, could you waive that?
I don't remember. We'll have to
Well,
read
we
it to
do
see
have that.
what you allow to be.
That's a requirement. I don't know if in the PUD you could waive that rule.
So what you can, no, you can't. You can waive
You can waive
internal
setbacks.
setbacks, street setbacks, open space, and building proximity, but not density.
Yeah, but not density.
And you have to have 2 acres for PUD, right? Or 1 acre.
A
A
It's
full
gonna
acre.
change to 1 acre in the VC and C1,
But you have to have a full acre.
but you'd only be
You'd only be
allowing
allowing 2
2
buildings.
duplexes per
Right.
acre. Even in a PUD.
The PUD in BC should involve single-family residential, is that correct?
Correct.
And you could put,
Put
you only
2
have 2 residential on 1 PUD.
on an acre.
acre.
On an acre.
Which is really a big area. Right. It's- The zoning is left alone is going to make the VC less dense than the surrounding residential.
I just think it's time to move this forward because we've been talking about this for 2 years now. And how to increase the density from the core, and this seems like, I just don't see any other way of doing it that would achieve the density that we're looking for. Unless if we say a minimum density of building units, but we've discussed that and we keep saying no to that. So I don't know how else we can move forward.
This amendment says eliminating the minimum lot size. Could we not specify another minimum lot size?
Not at this stage.
You can and have another.
You'd have to have another public
We
hearing.
don't have time.
But it's still, I mean, what would we specify?
Yeah, I understand, we're just trying to get around the problem.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because is this not like maybe a debate and, again, all good points about who knows who's gonna own this stuff, but is the risk of, say, being at that arbitrary 5 years from now and not having made the progress worth having someone who wants to develop land, call a spade, who wants to go down that direction and enable that to happen, to get that progress going forward. So it's really just the risk and the reward. So I see it.
We certainly pushed it off for enough years. He's getting,
Yeah, as you
we're
said.
hitting that risk.
Yeah, let's see, let me go another way, just try to move this a little bit. Conceptually, I'm in favor of this. I honestly believe that we have not really thought through all the consequences of this change. If we commit ourselves to doing that over the next year, I don't see anybody doing anything in the next year.
Yeah, that's a fair.
what the problem is gonna be is I've seen the planning board over and over again, they duck it. They don't wanna come back and deal with it after the fact, you know? But I do think we need to go through this with a fine tooth comb and make sure that we got architectural standards. Some people say they're ridiculous, you can't enforce those anyway. Well, you know, if that's the case, we ought to get them out of there because,
Your town attorney gave an opinion that you can.
That's
yeah, right. I don't know. I tell you the honest truth, I have no idea.
Now you do.
Now we do.
Well,
You
that's
have
an
the-
attorney's opinion.
Right, that's.
You, I
that's
could find
one
two
attorney's
other
opinion.
attorneys that'll disagree with me.
Right, it's one of them.
You know.
But that's all we can do is.
But you already did cover that base years ago when you did another settlement.
And we have, I feel we have gone through this carefully. I mean, every meeting's been very, very intensive discussion about these.
Except,
We have.
here's where I'm gonna disagree with you. And let me take this back. The last public hearing, we were proposing to eliminate single-family homes in this district. None, period. And then we switched and said, okay, they ought to be allowed and there should be no minimum lot size. That's a big, big change. So when we say we've gone through this with a fine tooth comb, I don't buy that. I really don't. I don't think we've done that at all. I think we're jumping around looking for solutions that increase density. And conceptually, I think this is the right way to go, but I'm struggling with it. I really am. Unless we commit ourselves to coming back and making sure that we haven't opened Pandora's box here.
I think that's preferable to leaving it or to eliminating this amendment.
A couple thoughts, sorry.
So I think that, okay, that this time, we don't duck the issue. We go at it head on and try to correct our definitions. That is, I think leaving taking the amendment out of the public meeting is worse than leaving it in.
Well, then we also got to commit ourselves to coming back. If this is a good idea for DC, it's a good idea for C1. And we've got to discuss that. We can't just ignore it.
Great.
Well, because C1 is most of the vacant land. I mean, there is not much VC. I mean, part of my, you know, on the other hand, they said, well, how much VC land is there sitting out there that could be developed? Not much.
6 acres.
Yeah, not much. But there's a lot of C1 land out there that could be developed. What do we want on it? Well,
We know what we want. We just need to
well, I
get
don't know if, small single-family homes will give you hotbeds that'll turn over.
Who's gonna be the enlightened one that's gonna guide us in this next year?
I have no,
Apparently, you don't have the idea.
So you're right that, this is the first time you've discussed this, the
Yeah.
last meeting, and 4, 5, and 6, are actually recommendations that Bill Kentlin and I both had, to say, all right, if you insist on leaving single family in, and that's my wording, not Bill Kentlin, then at least stop making it be less dense than everything else in that district. In terms of next year, I thought you already had talked about looking comprehensively next year at setbacks in terms of density. So that would be an opportunity to look throughout every district to see if you have your lot sizes and setbacks where you want them. I'd hate to see you drop amendment 4 if you're gonna keep allowing single family in the VC, because it's just not in the direction that I've heard you say you want to go.
Well,
Time to vote.
Well, yeah, but I don't think there's a motion on the floor. Somebody should make a motion.
All right, move to leave amendment 4 as is for the town meeting.
And to recommend. Or planning board recommends.
Yeah, you gotta move to recommend that it be forwarded to town meeting.
So,
Can you move to add with any?
No
By all
one shouldn't
means.
need it, but just in case. Yeah, you never know.
So moved.
So the motion is to recommend amendment number
4.
4 to, the 2019 town meeting with editorial corrections. And, I think we'll go around the, I'm sorry, thank you. I think we'll go around the table. Individual votes. Rick?
Aye.
Aye.
I,
Nay.
I'm in the nay column, and I would ask that the vote was passed, be reflected in the warrant article. That there's somebody, somewhere is a list that it was a 4-2 vote.
I don't know that you can do.
Find a way to do it. I don't care how it's done, put it in the wigwag, but don't leave people in this town, because no one's gonna read any of this stuff. They're relying on people sitting in this room, and if it's not unanimous, we should say the vote was not
Yeah,
unanimous.
that's a question of a town council.
Fine. I've had that problem with all kinds of warrant articles in this town. That you never had any idea whether it was approved unanimously or not. And if there was a dissenting vote, in order to say 2 people voted no.
Yeah, right. All right, the next issue is to whether or not we want to combine any of these amendments to.
How many, you had 7 votes for that, right? So it was 5-2?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd recommend you combine 4, 5, and 6, because they're all the dimensional requirements for residential in the VC district.
should we, if we're pointing out that 4 had some dissension?
We can't do,
I just-
we are not,
You can.
we will do, as Bill asked, we can put it on the website, we can put it in the wigwag about the vote. But as far as putting wording with the question, we will ask town council, but I don't believe that we can put that actually on the ballot. I don't think we can, but what we will ask. But if you combine 4, 5, and 6, there's 2 different votes in there. There's 2 unanimous votes and the 5-2 vote. So how do you want us to handle that?
Well, my question on combining 4, 5, and 6 is more of a question of what happens if one of these gets turned down and the others get approved? Are we in Never Never Land? In
No.
which case you gotta combine them.
So the combination of combining them is, it's one vote. They're all-
One vote
They
for
all go
all.
up, and they all go down.
Well, I understand that, but the question that I'm not making myself clear. If amendment number 3 gets turned down and 4 and 5 get approved, are we sitting in a mess?
No, I wouldn't separate or combine things that would cause that.
All right, so you're saying it's to the fact that 3 could get approved, 4 could get turned down, 5 could get turned down is of no concern.
No.
Okay. Well, then I would vote to include, put them together.
Except,
I mean,
the one thing that could be a problem if 4 passed, 5, 6 didn't, then you're gonna be requiring very tiny homes to meet those open space requirements.
But they're all
I
together.
think they work better
then I
together.
would bundle them
I
together.
think they work better bundled together.
We lost that chair. We can discuss
Major
it until he comes back. I think they have to see.
I think that makes sense to bundle them.
Right.
Well, no, you voted on all of the amendments.
The
We're talking
wording,
about bundling.
Oh,
the
but-
wording
Another
is
vote.
is dictated by the RSA's, and it's gonna be, are you in favor of amendment number blah, 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 as proposed by the Morrow Valley Planning Board? There's no opportunity to put in that sentence by a vote. of
Yeah,
five
I'm
to
just dealing with the reality of what happens, you know. These are voted on not in the public hearing, you know, not in the public portion of the
Right.
meeting, but they have to be voted on in the ballot.
Right,
So people come into the meeting having absolutely no idea what any of this stuff is.
But they could be
Zero.
informed.
Could
They don't come in informed. Who
That's-
informs them?
They should inform themselves.
No,
It's available.
That's, I
Well,
mean.
but this
But
is.
then they shouldn't be
That's one of the
voting.
issues
This is the
with
Well, then they
basis of
should,
democracy.
that's the
That's
basis, that's their responsibility.
basis of
Inform
to
democracy.
get-
The
last-
idealism of
the
it.
last two
That's right.
meetings, every chair in here was.
Yeah, yeah,
So
so,
We need to make some attempt to inform
it's in the minutes.
them.
No, they-
I think
no,
we go
Bill,
beyond that.
we,
Right,
we have, and we do. Wait a minute. We have informed people in the past, and we will inform them of these changes. They will be posted in several places in town. They will be on the town website. It will be publicized. If someone wants to write a wigwag article, it'll be in the wigwags. We tell people if they want to take 10 minutes and read, they can know what the issues are.
You gotta read the entire zoning
understand
document to make
No,
sense.
well, they
Holy
can
shit.
at least review what the changes being proposed are very easily. They will be posted on the town website. If people don't take that time, then they shouldn't be voting on it. You know, I mean, you can't make people do it.
Every town election I've gone to, Mark, and if
Mhm.
I'm wrong, you can disagree with me. 90% of the people showing up have no idea what the hell they're voting on.
I don't disagree.
their right.
That's their right to vote without any information.
So what do you
You
do
know,
with that case?
Well,
That's
what
why,
we've done
that's
in the
why I
past.
feel very strongly that somehow the spirit of this discussion has got to be communicated to people.
absolutely, I agree. We will do everything we can to tell people about it. We don't hide these votes.
It's gonna be
though.
the same with the right, use by right of the tram.
It
Absolutely.
was the same with the sign last year.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you can have conceptual votes, you know, and I think it's a great point to throw something in the wigwag. That's where people get information,
Right.
right? They zone out when they see these documents we have, you know, but I mean, if we think it's that important, you know, it's like, these are about high density. This is why high, you know, density is important, because people wouldn't think that. If they conceptually know that, they can have half an educated vote. You know, and that's how it was with the sign last year, which we got through by what, one vote?
Haven't we in the past, Mark, had a discussion, you know, like for the budget, for example,
Yes.
people schedule something to discuss what these changes mean, and anyone who attends could understand what you don't do that with zoning?
Well,
And this is you doing that.
right, but
Well-
what has happened in the past is we've just taken the amendments and had a public forum because of the people who are property owners that live away. They don't vote, but just to inform them, we've just had a public informational session on both the budget, zoning amendments, and quite frankly, ask Bill, 1 or 2 people show up. But at least we're putting it out there and giving them the opportunity to find out what's going on if they want to. You know, we can do
Depends
the
on
same
issue.
thing. Yeah.
I mean, and I would be lesser concerned if we were voting on these in town meeting, although the meeting would take forever.
Mhm.
But
Right, because it's
this is a
ballot.
vote ahead of time by ballot, by secret ballot, it's hard to get people to understand what it is. I mean, I don't know how many people have called me in the past when we've done these zoning amendments and say, what should I vote? Should I vote yes or no?
Well, you tell them what you think, I guess.
Well,
Oh,
It's a democracy.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, they're gonna call you, and they're gonna do the same thing. If they know you, they're gonna say, well, what should I vote on this thing?
Doesn't the select board recommend?
No.
Yes or no?
No.
No, this is
Only the
planning board.
planning board.
Haven't they done that in the?
No, they make recommendations on the warrant articles for the budget,
War, okay.
Yes.
got it.
not the zoning.
Okay.
All right, well,
Each one of these amendments could be voted on independently without affecting the others, is that correct?
and there was one example of where it would be a little bit messy. If 4 got approved and the other 2 got turned down, then, you
They're
know,
all like those.
was that it?
Yes,
Then we're stuck with defining minimum. That's the only basis.
Yeah.
That's what we decided, when we were out, that was your plan.
Yeah, I didn't hear that. Okay, what are you bundling?
I'd recommend,
4, 5, and
whoever,
6.
they were waiting to vote when you came back, but my recommendation is to bundle 4, 5, and 6.
All right, well. Does that require a vote or is it just a consensus? Okay, you've got your consensus. 4, 5, and 6 would be combined. Now, that takes care of all the business for that. Thank you. Good job, everyone. That's very good. I'm sorry, go.
Can I make one comment?
Yes, you may.
Now, I would caution you about, making that amendment 4 too big a gray area, because the consequence of that not passing a town meeting is higher density. I don't think you should assume that nothing's gonna happen in the next year. So if eliminating the minimum lot size does not pass, the consequence of that is having bigger lot sizes and less density. You should realize that
Right.
before
In
you
BC.
put a bunch of articles in the
Right.
in the wigwag or whatever, cautioning them about that. And I personally think that, and I got in this process, this discussion late, I think you've done a good job of trying to inform people. And nobody's gonna get informed in a short discussion over the phone or anything else. You've gotta dig into this stuff. Nobody understands it as well as you folks do and as well as putting your protection in. So the desire to better inform the public is great, but as a practical matter, you know, if they haven't been here before today, they're not gonna get better informed than you folks are. But I appreciate what you've done, and I think Tara's done a great job, and I appreciate all the work you've done. It's a comprehensive and detailed job.
There's more to go.
Huh?
There's more to go.
next year.
Next year.
Just next year.
Yeah, well, as I say, I think the real discussion is the C1 property.
It's been a pleasure to
And
work
that's
with
a,
the
that's
board
a,
that,
that's a much more interesting
Yeah,
discussion in
right.
my opinion. But,
it's been a pleasure to work with this board. You all show up in a meeting and think
Well,
through
most-
these things and discuss them, and that makes my work very good.
I mean, that doesn't happen elsewhere.
But this has been a good year for us. haven't it?
This is as good as it gets.
Well, nasty morning.
Yeah, that's right. Don't we have something else to go on the agenda?
I'm not so sure what I was supposed to.
Wait a minute, you're my wheels home.
Yeah, you eat a lot.
Have a good holiday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Merry
holidays.
Christmas.
All right, is there room for comment? Sure. Just before this all goes away, remember this map?
Yeah,
The only piece that's really outstanding with respect to BC. is-
yeah, it's
is
not much.
That,
who owns it?
well,
Well,
now,
Right, now he does.
Well, but it's not in part of the deal that's being sold to.
I have
Well,
no
we don't
idea,
At least,
but
I think that's
anything can be sold.
but
And I'm assuming at some point in time, that's their objective.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, no doubt.
That's a safe bet.
Okay. I think, the risk isn't crazy.
For one, nothing is gonna
For
happen
1
in a
year.
year.
That's right.
That's, but my concern would be is we will not come back and honestly revisit this because it's a pain in the neck to do that.
All right.
But I will,
Why
when
do
the
you say
new one
nothing will
gets
happen
written,
within a year?
when the new one gets written,
might
I
do it.
will take a look at it
You might
and
do it.
I'll point out all the things that I'm, potentially concerned about.
But why do you think nothing will happen in a year? I mean, theoretically, I could
Because I've
come
been
in
on
with
the
a,
planning board too long.
I could come in with a PUD in January.
Oh, you could, right, in theory you could, right. Well, no, but I don't have a problem with the PUD, because in the PUD, what you're doing is you're defining a
It's a
block
comprehensive,
space.
it's a
It's,
comprehensive.
you're talking about the whole thing. My concern about is somebody who's got a chunk of land or, and says, well, I can take advantage of this by subdividing off a little chunk of this. And then he sells it and we lose, and then the only one who's making a judgment as to what goes in there is the building inspector. And have we left him in a difficult position? That's, right now, I don't think he worries about any of those things. He doesn't even, I would guess he doesn't care about the architectural standards that are in there. But if that's what we're gonna rely on, then we gotta reinforce, gotta make sure they're right.
Okay,
Okay, Mr. Chairman.
we've got the agenda. We do that. Thank you, Bill, for your input.
See you in January.
Okay, the next thing on the agenda is the review and acceptance of minutes.
Thank you. Good job.
From the November 8th meeting.
Karen? I sent you a couple of suggestions.
Yes, I got them this morning because I'm not here at 5:30 at night.
On line 82,
So I will do it. Awesome. Thank you though, very much.
in the minutes on line 82, we should somewhere in there insert that this is relevant to the aerial tramway. And as they were now written, it wasn't clear to me. And lines 84 to 87, I couldn't understand it. I don't know
Yeah,
what the
that
hell
was-
we talked
That
about.
was a
So,
sentence masquerading as a paragraph.
Yeah, right.
so I wrote,
But the question, what did we
I
even
wrote a
discuss?
suggestion. You have it, Karen?
I have it upstairs on my desk. Would you like me to go get it?
I wrote it and I sent it in email.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
great.
But that doesn't mean I'm right. It just means that I couldn't understand.
Well,
it either.
I couldn't understand that, but I struggled with, I'm trying to remember what was it that we actually talked about.
Did it refer to the
The
request from Tim Smith?
yeah, it has
Well,
to do with-
it did refer on the request from Tim Smith, and you guys did tell him because he was looking for approval before anything even happened. And you explained to him that you do not give site plan approval for just out of words. So that, I do take everything off of the tape.
It's a use by
So-
right, though.
Yes, we gave them that.
No,
If it's
no,
a use by
we already
right,
had
he
it.
doesn't
Yeah.
need approval beyond that. Not from the standpoint of he has a right to do it. Right? So that kind of removed his concern with the Forest Service. What he was saying is I don't want to go to the Forest Service. The trouble of getting approval on their property.
Right.
And then have you come back and say, well, you can't do it on our property.
This was all a discussion about conditional use and aerial tramway.
Right.
And at the end, the bottom line, and this is where it also gets confusing, lines 88 and 89 and 90. We simply decided not to change the zoning ordinance, but just better define what we were talking about, an aerial tramway, as I recall. So we didn't vote to make a separate section about the Alpine ski lift tram. So it would be use by right. It already was used by right.
No, I thought in some areas it was not a use, I thought we.
It was not, and you
No,
voted.
Was it always a use by
It
right?
was, and so she pointed that out today, that it stayed as an allowed
Right,
primary use
Right.
in all of the
oh, right,
zones.
we made, in the end, we decided.
That's what
That
you
was the
decided.
6-1
Right.
vote was,
Right,
not to change it.
Yes.
It does read as if the Tim Smith was ready to, wanting to start a lift, and I think it was a more hypothetical discussion. I mean, it's not like he was saying, I'm gonna start this in 2 years, what do you guys, was
Well-
it purely hypothetical?
yeah, it was, but it was his concern, I think somebody just said it, that he be able to get
Mhm.
your approval
Mhm.
before going to the Forest Service
Exactly.
and not make it conditional. I mean, you can approve it and have a condition in there that he meet all of his other
Right.
requirements, including the Forest Service, but at least you've given your approval so that he can go to the Forest Service
Yeah.
and say, the town says okay,
So if that's what the paragraph can read.
right? Is
Well, I
that,
don't-
if that's
Well-
what you, if that's what you
The
intended,
concern was, can we do that?
if you can what?
Can we approve it?
Yeah, you can approve it
Conditional.
and do a condition on the approval,
Well-
sure you can.
I know legally we can, but are we going to do it?
Well, it was a
Well-
question of being able to put some kind of, technical, as opposed to they having the use by right to begin with.
Aren't we just clarifying the minute?
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
well, that's what we're
what
trying, that's what
do,
we're trying to
clarify
figure out what we're
minutes.
discussing,
Yeah,
yeah.
So what did we say in that meeting? Is
That we made no
anybody-
changes to that's simply it, we made no changes to the current zoning ordinance with regard to an aerial tramway.
And he would not be able to get a pre-approval.
Do you
think
think
that way,
Carrie,
right?
you could make it clearer by listening to the tape again and maybe get a little bit more out of it?
yeah, because it wasn't, he came in to officially request.
No, he wasn't requested, it
Yeah,
was,
but that's how it
right.
reads, right. It's written here, so-
I can review the tape again.
It looks like we may need to get a few written before we
Yeah,
can accept it.
yeah, we can,
I would table them until the next meeting and let's listen to the tape and,
we decided to, in the end, we decided not to go forward with the change that we were discussing, which was to make it a conditional use.
right,
So so in the end, we did nothing to
Right.
the ordinance.
Well, then we.
That was a
If
6-1
that's what we
vote.
discussed and we agreed that you should have just say that.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I was saying,
We
why
decided to.
89 and 90 doesn't quite say that.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying. It makes it sound like we made a change when
Right.
we really did.
I think that what he means is that his use by right stands,
that's correct.
Right.
no change.
His use by right stands, but he was concerned, I know I don't know what we talked about in the meeting. His concern is, what does that give me? And it gives him a little bit to go to the Forest Service with, you know. he's
But he thought it was a
looking
big
for-
deal, as I recall.
It- It's
It
a,
is a big deal because the Forest Service is probably gonna put a condition on them. If to get their approval, you gotta get the town's approval first. And so it's a little bit of the chicken egg thing, you
So
know?
we gave it to him. We told him that he had use by right.
that's right, and so he can come
Right.
forward with a plan
With a specific plan.
that you can approve, and if you wanna put a condition on that approval,
Right.
you can.
But it can only be on the plan itself and the
That's
technical
right.
issues. It can't
That's
be on whether or not they can
Okay, well-
even build a tramway.
In other
Right.
words, we can't say to him, you can't do this.
No, right.
We can say you can't do this like the way you propose.
That's right. Yeah. You have to make
Right.
this change and this change and this change, but you can do it.
Because he has all these other flaming hoops that he has to jump through.
Right.
Yeah.
All this for something that's never.
Never gonna happen. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
Okay, so we'll table the acceptance of the minutes until we get a rewriting of them for approval next meeting. All right, Next thing on the agenda. Under new business. Actually, we don't have anything under old business. Anybody want to bring up anything under old business? All right, we'll go into new business. Carrie, can we go rearrange the old business and for new business on all the agendas? Mark, you have something to discuss with regard to appointed commissioners?
No, not really. I'm working with North Country Council. We currently have, two commissioners, one of whom is no longer on the planning board. The North Country Council is made up of the member towns, which basically is from us north to the Canadian border. Those are the member communities of the North Country Council. Each one of those member communities have two commissioners that sit on the North Country Council board. Those appointments usually come from the planning board. In all of the other communities, they do anyway. And we should have two people from the board who are willing to serve on the North Country Council. And they have just been asking us what, who would you like your commissioners to be? This is not unique to Waterville Valley. There's only about maybe 7 people out of all of those towns that come to the commission board meetings and deal with regional planning issues. So if there are 2 people from the planning board who would be interested in serving on the North Country Council, I'd like to know who they are, and if you guys could vote maybe in January to appoint someone, or wait until after town meeting when you get your new terms of office set with your membership. But sometime in the next few months, if you guys could have a discussion when everybody's here about having people serve on North Country Council, that would be helpful.
Where do they meet?
They meet usually in Littleton, but they've talked about starting to move their meetings around so that they can encourage other people to attend.
And how often do they meet?
Once every 2 months for the commissioners, and then there are special subcommittees like the transportation subcommittee that works on like the 10-year plan and other aspects of transportation planning in the council area.
And even though my name's on here, I've never been to one, mostly because it's been so far away, and then
Right.
I can never get there with working, so you can pretend my name's there.
Well-
There are 2 people who legit will be able to have the time to go.
Yeah, and usually the meetings are at 3:00 in the afternoon in Littleton.
But the council has no statutory authority.
Yes, they do. They are the Regional Planning Commission.
And what does that mean?
That
That they can recommend to towns what
They
should do?
assist towns. They do training for towns on land use issues. They are responsible for developing the 10-year transportation plan for the North Country area and then submitting that to the state. They are a conduit for planning grants and training grants that can be used, so they can leverage state monies. They can make recommendations on things like when the governor and council were considering the opportunity zone legislation. They made recommendations along with all other regional planning commissions. They are working with DOT on this bus issue, the parking issue with respect to the notch in the summer and Franconia State Park. So they're working with the state on those types of things. So statutorily, they are the Regional Planning Commission.
Okay.
So
Thank you, Mark.
can I keep it on under old business until we get those two names?
Yes.
Okay.
You put that under old business, Terry, and we'll put it on this.
Yes.
Okay, we have committee reports, town council, and for our signing.
I know. Well,
Come on, Wendy,
it's
you can do
supposed to
it.
be, it's been promised to be up no later than the 21st.
Oh.
December.
Man, the pessimism grows. I love it.
2018.
Yes, right.
So, yes, it is, it's coming. It's coming. And it'll be beautiful once it's here.
So there was a rumor out there floating around that the sign was built on either state property or federal property, not on town property.
Or both. It's a good
Or
rumor.
both, or a combination.
That is
of
a
both.
good rumor,
It's a
Bill.
good rumor.
Is there, what's the meaning of that?
If Mark's gonna take this one.
So that rumor is in fact. The state DOT gave Route 49, which we now call Valley Road, to the town. State DOT had a right-of-way from the National Forest for the maintenance of Route 49. They did not involve the Forest Service when they gave us the road in 1999. They did not involve the Forest Service in that transaction. So the land, they did not give us the entire right-of-way. They gave us an easement. And the forest, we're now in the process of changing that right-of-way from New Hampshire DOT to the town of Waterville Valley with the Forest Service. But the sign is in its entirety on Forest Service land, but it is all within the right-of-way. So when we get the easement straightened out from back in 1999, we will be able to maintain the sign where it is with a special use permit to the Forest Service.
Would the easement then allow, if in the future we decided to put the bike trails in?
We need to work that out with the Forest Service. That may be another special use permit. What that's gonna mean is we probably will not be able to move forward with the pedestrian path in 2019. It'll probably take most of next year to get that transferred over and get the okay from the Forest Service to do that project. So, but we are actively working on that. The Forest Service has already okayed the sign where it is and in its form up there. So that is the sign is a done deal. The pedestrian path, not so much.
What's the cost for the permit
$200 a year
to the Forest Service?
to the Forest Service. And we are working with the Forest Service and trying to actually secure the land because they don't have any interest in the administration of another special use permit for this. So I think there is an outside chance that we could secure some of that land as to actually get it transferred over to the town to keep the road in there. I mean, they're always going to have to let us maintain the road, that right of way. And if they were to say no, then the state DOT has the right of way. So we would work something out with DOT, a formal agreement to maintain that road because state DOT is not going to come back in here and start taking over management of that small section of road. They have no interest in that. They don't want the cost. It's just a headache. So I just, it's going to take some time to get the paperwork done.
time means about a year.
Yeah, well, a year, 10
Yeah.
years, who knows
10
how
years.
long, you know?
Dealing
We'll
with
see.
federal government.
Yeah, it's tough.
I'm curious though, why did it, why did it happen when the sign was done? Why wasn't this?
Because no one really thought about it. The town was maintaining the road but we cleared some brush and cut down a couple of trees and to put the sign in.
Yeah.
And we started doing all that earthwork. When we did that, a Forest Service employee drove by and said, "What are you doing? Cutting trees on Forest Service land?" Because the 770,000 acres of trees aren't enough.
Yeah.
They were worried about what we were cutting. So
You gotta pay,
that started the whole.
cut trees.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
more like,
Right.
the interest is.
Yeah.
You owe us money.
Yeah, well, we didn't owe them any money for
Yeah.
cutting the couple of trees we cut, but it opened the question. So that's how and DOT has washed their hands of the issue. They said, "We gave this to the town, you guys deal with it, because it's not our right of way anymore." But anyway, it's going forward and it will be put in by December 21st. Yes, of this year.
And we are moving forward as well with looking to facilitate wayfinding for folks to go without a car. So just bring a bike from the town square out to further reaches of town to make all that wayfinding easier. So that's what we're tackling next.
Conservation Commission, Don?
Oh, yeah, so what I see with Conservation Committee is that they're taking small steps forward, but they're finally meeting once a month. And they're really very involved in the whole Conservation Committee before, which seems like it was falling apart. They got some really good people on board. They're now looking at the inventory of the whole area of Waterville Valley. The inventory meaning the waterways, the forest, and all that.
Natural resource inventory is one of the statutory requirements for a conservation commission. And so they're starting to develop a plan we've never had an NRI here. So they're starting to put that together. They're also bringing a person in to talk about how to do that at their next meeting next week. So there are outside organizations that help conservation commissions all over the state do NRIs and update them. So they're starting that and they're working on the handbook. So they actually have a set of rules for how they operate, which they have not really had clear guidance on that before. So they're working on a couple of good things.
So they're taking it really seriously.
Yep.
So it's a good group
Yep.
involved. Well,
Atlanta Communications, I think I have a Christmas card here from Tara.
Oh, how nice.
Yeah, right. No, she already
Yeah.
gave that to us. So we got the invoices squared away.
That was our Christmas card.
Yeah, that was our Christmas.
Because, okay, wishing you and yours wonderful holiday season, happy New Year. Thank you for your business in 2018. Looking forward to the future opportunities to work together. I think she's done a great job.
With that being pointed out, are we confident how we're moving forward with looking at setbacks for next year without any guidance? Is there-
We have put funding
Yep.
in. We want to talk.
No, we have $10,000 in the budget with the hiring and to help us.
Oh, so is that an automatic that she's gonna be
It's
hired,
in
or is
the,
that-
no, it's in the department request, so if the funding gets approved at town meeting, you can start working with her or
It's not a
find
special
another.
No, no, it's in.
No, it's in the
budget.
operating
Okay.
budget.
Does she know that?
Oh, great.
Yes, she does. She gave us the number to put in.
That-
That's great.
Now, if we're gonna also have to be looking, or should be looking apparently, at architectural standards, as part of that discussion.
Well,
so you
yeah.
want to-
We're gonna hit a number
It's
of.
pretty thin right now, what we got.
Right. And I don't know if Tara has expertise in architectural standards or not. I mean, is that $10,000, is that limited, so she couldn't take some of it and get some sort of expertise with regard to architectural standards as well?
Can I make a suggestion? If you request from Rich that we increase that 10,000 to some other number, like 15,000 or so, I think that's gonna give you some additional money to be able to do that. Plus, if we do have development requests this year, you may want some professional review of plans. Now, you can have the developer reimburse you for some or all of that cost, but you probably should have a little bit of money in there for that kind of review.
And the $10,000 that is for what you were just mentioning, is that something that has to go up for the vote at the town?
Not
meeting?
individually,
it's part of
it'll
the
be in the
It's
budget.
part of the budget. If
part
the
of the
budget's approved, it's money there.
Yeah, but you don't have to get up and make a presentation like you did
Right.
last year.
Because I
But
told
you
them last year, when
you could.
Rich.
In the budget hearing, you could get people objecting to, take that item out.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Be ready to support.
Did we ask Rich to ask the select board for?
Well, that was the reason for my question. I don't know.
Because
We
I
have
don't
to
know
be
if she can
extra
do it
flag
or
and
if
go
you're gonna have
in
to
front
get
of the
another
town.
person.
I'm sorry?
I don't know if Tara can do the architectural stuff or if you're gonna need to find
Yeah.
another consultant to do that.
We haven't come up with terms of reference yet for a contract, have we?
Not
Precisely what.
precisely what she's gonna
Something
do. She
parking
just,
was another thing I think
that's right. We
we were gonna
had,
look at.
she did have
A
some
list.
a general item list, and she estimated that was her
Right, I
estimate.
don't think
We
architectural
really
standards.
But we don't have a
The
contract.
BC
Right,
the,
okay.
the Village Commercial One question is big question, because there is a fair amount of vacant land. So if you want to increase density there, you gotta confront it.
And most of that land is going to be transferred to the resort.
That is the land.
Regardless who owns it,
The deal closes.
Yeah.
I think that the $10,000 that we paid this year got a lot.
Yes,
Yeah.
you got a
Was
lot.
was a lot of work for $10,000. So I mean, I don't see next year having that much work involved.
Okay.
It's gonna be-
We-
That was a tremendous amount.
My feeling would be that 10,000 would be enough.
Okay.
If we can't find a simple statement on architectural standards, I've read architectural standards of towns that have written them. They go on for 50 pages of stuff of what's allowed. I mean, we need just some simple statements to guide whether, this works or doesn't work. So that if that the building inspector feels comfortable with saying, nah, you gotta come up with something a little better than that.
Yeah, so I think the 10,000 is probably.
Okay, good. We'll leave it as is.
Okay, any other business? Now, entertain motion to adjourn.
Oh, CIP.
Oh, yes.
We'll be sending you all the CIP. The CIP committee's got maybe one more pass at it. They've met with all of the department heads. But we will send it out electronically, and we need feedback from the planning board electronically before your next meeting, because we need to have the final copy of the CIP voted on at the next meeting.
And what type of feedback do you want? Do you want, I'm in favor of this?
Yeah.
I'm not in
Yes.
favor?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. We need to know if there are concerns, what are those concerns? We'll send you all the financial backup along with the plan, but the CIP committee and the department heads have been making minor revisions to the 2019, especially the 2019 proposal, but it's not substantially different than what was in the last year's plan from a financial standpoint. We have the same amount of bonding, and we've been tweaking the cash capital side of it more than anything else. So.
Essentially, it's gonna be a fight over the financing of the new fire truck.
Used fire truck. That's gonna be the fight,
Demonstrator fire truck.
right? Whether it's a new or a used fire truck.
Yeah.
And
But all-
I'll wait to see.
All
Yeah.
of that will be included. Okay.
Okay,
We need a motion to adjourn.
I do.
So,
Very good. 10:15.
Aye. Opposed? Very good. Thank you. Thank you.
Mark, real quick, in the CIP, the.
Yes, sir.
Sandy asked me, the library, the
Yeah.
money is in the CIP
It
to
is.
fix the library.
Yep.
All right.
75,000.
75, I don't know.
I won't say a word.